In this video, we'll take a look at the MOV overlay option, which is available on the Media tab. So it's come here, we can see it's the third one down or fourth from the bottom, and have a MOV already imported here. And so you can see that once I have it imported, we'll take a look at that in a second. I can change the size numerically, the flip it. I'll even have a leave on stage option. We'll come back to that here in a second. Now, when you're importing a QuickTime MOV or just an MOV file, what's happening is it's actually converting it to a PNG sequence on the fly. And that allows us to work with MOV files even on Windows, because Apple stopped supporting QuickTime on Windows as of April 2017. And so that sort of created a problem for Windows users, and we get around that by just converting it to a PNG sequence. And that's why we also have the ability to import a PNG sequence if you want to. So we do have this leave on stage option, and really that doesn't make sense for animations where they animate off. But what you can do is you can come in here, use the split feature, delete that end, and then it'll have it like this at the final state of the animation when it comes in. And then leave on stage starts to make more sense, because this is what you'd see going forward even after the block ends. So that's what these options are for. Now let's come over to doing a search for these. Our lower thirds that are included with the included assets are QuickTime MOV files, or MOVs. And I want to point out that when we're looking at a preview inside of the previewer here, these are actually WebM files. And so because if we were having to convert the MOV files all to PNG sequences in order to do a preview, it would take a really long time. Instead, we use WebM files. They're much smaller in file size, and that's what we're actually looking at here. But when we click on import, it does again that conversion to a PNG sequence. So it can take a little while. So if I were to click on this, let's go ahead and delete this animation here, and we'll have a new one. We'll come to the beginning and we'll add an empty block. And so let's come back here and do a search, and we'll just import a different one. I'm going to show you that it takes a little bit of time, because that it's going to take a little bit, because it's again converting that to a PNG sequence. So once it's imported, we'll see it here on the timeline, and again what we will actually be seeing is a PNG sequence, not the actual MOV file. So now let's talk about formats here, because the MOV format originally was in what was called the animation codec, and it was really the only option for many years, decades. And that now there's another version. It's the PNG version, which I believe we're not 100% sure because it's fairly new, but it's probably a PNG sequence actually. So that variation of the MOV format is again is brand new, and it's not supported, at least we don't think so, with our what we're using. So when we export, when we're exporting QuickTime MOV, it's still in that original animation codec. So if there's any need for you to use with a program like Camtasia, for example, there are free utilities, you can Google them, that will convert a MOV file from the animation codec to the PNG codec so that you can work with those video programs. If we ever have the ability to support that as an option, we certainly will. But right now we don't, at least on export. So again, what we're looking at here is the QuickTime, the PNG sequence. Now I did talk about the ability to split here. Another kind of neat thing that you can do is if you split this and you need this to last more duration, you can add a freeze frame. You can have this selected, add a freeze frame. And that's going to be something that you can extend out if you want to, and then come over here and turn on snap and have this come snap to this, and that lets you make that last a little bit, whatever duration you need to, instead of just that first part there. So I'm just kind of popping ahead a little bit here so we can just see that transition, and we'll just go ahead and play that, and you can see that this again, it allows us to make that last longer. So that's something that we wanted to do so that these file sizes can be smaller, instead of having a QuickTime MOV file that is really long. In order for it to be that longer duration, we can have it be shorter, and then you can just add the freeze frame in to make it last however you want to. The last note on MOV files are they can often be very big file sizes, so whenever you have the option to not use a QuickTime MOV file using our other animation tools, we highly recommend that, especially when you're making templates.